We are at the crossroads of one of the most serious crises in world history. We are living history, yet our understanding of the sequence of events since the beginning of January has been blurred. Worldwide, people have been misled, both by their governments as well as by the media, as to the causes and devastating consequences of this crisis, namely the COVID-19 pandemic. Planet lockdown is an encroachment on civil liberties and the right to life. I think we understand that. Entire national economies are in jeopardy. In some countries, martial law has been declared. Small and medium-sized capital is slated to be eliminated. Big capital prevails. A massive concentration of corporate wealth is unfolding. It's a diabolical new world order in the making. Red zones, the face mask, social distancing, the closing down of colleges and universities and schools, no more family gatherings, no birthday celebrations, music, the arts, no more cultural events, sports events are suspended, no more funerals, no more weddings. Love and life is banned outright. And in some countries, Christmas reunions are illegal. Closing down the global economy is presented to public opinion as a means to combating the virus. That's what they want us to believe. If the public had been informed that the COVID-19 is similar, the fear campaign would have fallen flat. According to the World Health Organization, the most commonly reported symptoms of COVID-19 include fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, and most patients experience mild illness. Approximately 14% experience severe disease and 5% were critically ill. The World Health Organization says those who become infected generally experience mild illness and recover in about 2 weeks. According to Anthony Fauci, the overall clinical consequences of COVID-19 may be ultimately more akin to those of a severe seasonal, which has a case fatality rate of approximately 0.1%. The pandemic was officially launched by the WHO on March 11, 2020, leading to the lockdown and closure of the national economies of 190 countries, member states of the United Nations. The instructions came from above, from Wall Street, the World Economic Forum, the billionaire foundations. Let us review the history and the underlying this crisis. On January 30th, we recall that the World Health Organization implemented a worldwide public health emergency. What was the justification for this decision? On January 30th, there were only 83 cases outside China, out of a total population of 6.4 billion people. On the day preceding that historic decision, there were 5 cases in the United States, 3 in Canada, 4 in France, 4 in Germany. There was absolutely no scientific basis to justifying a worldwide public health emergency. These ridiculously low numbers, not mentioned by the media, were used to spearhead a worldwide fear campaign. Understood that dominant financial interests, billionaire foundations, and international financial institutions played a key role in launching this public health emergency on January 30th. This was not a decision of the World Health Organization Director General, Dr. Tedros. In the week preceding the historic WHO decision, there were consultations at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, from the 21st to the 24th of January. The WHO Director General, Dr. Tedros, was present at Davos. The important question is, were these consultations instrumental in influencing the WHO's historic decision on January 30th, which unleashed the crisis? Now, bear in mind, and that's very important, on the day following Dr. Tedros' decision, namely on the 31st of January, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, announced that he would deny entry to the United States of both Chinese and foreign nationals who had traveled to China in the last 14 days. And what happened? This immediately triggered a crisis in air travel, transportation, US-China trade relations, as well as the whole structure of freight and shipping transactions. The 5 so-called confirmed cases in the US were sufficient to justify President Trump's January 31st decision to suspend air travel to China, while at the same time precipitating a hate campaign against ethnic Chinese, not only in the United States, but throughout the Western world. China was held responsible for spreading infection worldwide. The next stage of this crisis was the February financial crash. February 20th, 2020. At a press conference on Thursday, the 20th of February afternoon, in a briefing in Geneva, Switzerland, at WHO headquarters, the Director General, Dr. Tedros, said that he was, quote, concerned that the chance to contain the coronavirus outbreak was closing. Quote, I believe the window of opportunity is still there, but that window is narrowing. Now, bear in mind that these shock and awe statements by the Director General of the WHO, which contributed to triggering panic, were based on 1,076 positive cases outside China. And outside China, we have a population of 6.4 billion. These figures did not justify intimating the possibility of an epidemic worldwide. 1,076 positive cases outside China. The statement of Dr. Tedros, based on flawed concepts and statistics, had nonetheless set the stage for the February financial collapse, which was triggered by inside information, foreknowledge, the whole gamut of derivative trade, short selling, hedge fund operations. And what happened? The stock market crash initiated on February the 20th was categorized as the fastest fall in global stock markets in financial history and the most devastating crash since the Wall Street crash of 1929. And this was motivated by 1,076 positive cases outside China, which was described by Dr. Tedros, head of the WHO, as a window which is narrowing, and that the coronavirus outbreak was closing, at least in terms of opportunities to contain the epidemic. The cause of the financial crash, according to analysts, was that the virus was responsible for this disaster which spread worldwide. Without the human hand, however, at least that's my opinion, there is no causal relationship between a microscopic virus and the complex gamut of financial instruments. The possibility of financial fraud and inside trading was dispelled. The issue of conflict of interest of the WHO Director General was never raised. The following, and perhaps the most dramatic phase of this crisis, started on March 11, 2020. The World Health Organization officially declared a worldwide pandemic, which it had in fact announced several weeks earlier at the height of the financial crash. At the time of this decision on March 11, 2020, there were 44,279 positive cases of COVID-19 outside China, out of a population of 6.4 billion. What were the solutions? Confinement instructions transmitted to 193 member states of the United Nations, with politicians instructed to implement far-reaching decisions on the management of their economy, namely, people stay at home, economic activity is cancelled, and all of this was presented to public opinion as a means to combating the virus, the virus. Unprecedented in history, applied simultaneously. Entire sectors of the world economy were destabilized. Small and medium-sized enterprises were driven into bankruptcy. Unemployment and poverty became rampant. And these decisions, which were dictated formally by the WHO on the instructions of powerful financial interests, were conducive to a wave of unemployment which is unprecedented in modern history. Now, immediately following the March 11th, 2020 WHO announcement, the fear campaign went into high gear and the financial crisis resumed on the following day, March the 12th, 2020, which was called Black Thursday. Financial markets plummeted once more, and this has resulted in a massive transfer of financial wealth in favor of America's billionaires. The results of this crisis, which now affect what we might describe as the real economy, is devastating. In several developing countries, famines have erupted. The health impacts, mortality, morbidity of these measures, including the destabilization of the system of national health care in numerous countries, far surpass the impacts attributed to COVID-19. This diabolical project, based on scanty and flawed estimates, is casually described by the corporate media as a humanitarian endeavor, as a solution. It sounds absurd. How is it that closing down the real economy of planet Earth could constitute the solution to a public health crisis? In fact, what we can say is that this decision is the cause of a diabolical process of worldwide destabilization and impoverishment. The national economy, combined with political, social, and cultural institutions, is the basis for the reproduction of real life, income, employment, production, trade, infrastructure, social services, including health services. In other words, destabilizing the economy of planet Earth cannot constitute a solution to combating the virus. But that is the imposed solution which they want us to believe in. And that's what they're doing. It's the destruction of people's lives. It's the destabilization of civil society. And I should mention that those lies are sustained by a massive media disinformation campaign, 24/7, incessant and repetitive, covert alerts, and that has lasted for the last 11 to 12 months. It is a process of social engineering, and really what they want to do is to hike up the numbers so as to justify the lockdown. And now there is a so-called second wave, and millions of COVID positive tests are now being tabulated. People are frightened and puzzled. Why would they do it? COVID is portrayed as the killer virus. Empty schools, empty airports, bankrupt grocery stores. Most of us understand that the entire urban services economy is in crisis. Shops, bars, restaurants are driven into bankruptcy. International travel and holidays are suspended. Streets are empty. And concurrently, free speech is suppressed. You are not allowed to address these issues. The lockdown narrative is supported by media disinformation, online censorship, social engineering, and this ongoing fear campaign. Medical doctors, as well as the broader public, have questioned the official narrative, and medical doctors are threatened. They are losing their jobs. Their careers are destroyed. And those who oppose the government lockdowns are categorized as antisocial psychopaths. I'm wondering, who are the actual psychopaths? The politicians? Accept the big lie and you are tagged as a good person with empathy, who understands the feelings of others. But if you express reservations regarding social distancing, the wearing of the face mask, you will immediately be tagged as a callous and deceitful psychopath. Censorship extends itself into academia, colleges and universities. The teaching staff is pressured to conform and endorse the official COVID narrative. questioning the legitimacy of the lockdown in online classrooms could lead to dismissal. And I should mention that several medical doctors who have opposed the COVID consensus or the vaccine have been arrested. People on social media are increasingly aware that the opinions of prominent scientists who question the lockdown, the face mask, or social distancing are what we might describe as taken down by Google. The practice of taking down YouTube videos has become widespread. It constitutes censorship. Similarly, Twitter has confirmed that it will remove all posts that suggest that there are, quote, adverse impacts or effects of receiving vaccinations. I think we should understand that destabilizing in one fell swoop the national economies of more than 190 countries is a de facto act of economic warfare. This diabolical agenda undermines the sovereignty of nation states, it impoverishes people worldwide, and it leads to a spiraling dollar-denominated global debt. And it is in this regard that we must address the powerful structures of global capitalism. Big money, coupled with its intelligence and military apparatus, are the driving force. Using advanced digital and communications technologies, the lockdown and economic closure of the global economy is unprecedented in world history. This simultaneous intervention in 190 countries derogates democracy. It undermines the sovereignty of nation states worldwide without the need for military intervention. The COVID crisis is being used as a pretext and a justification to trigger a worldwide process of economic, social, and political restructuring. The tendency is towards the imposition of a totalitarian state. And what must be emphasized is that there is an unelected public-private partnership under the auspices of the World Economic Forum. And this self-proclaimed entity has come to the rescue of planet Earth's 7.8 billion people. And the closure of the global economy is presented as a means to killing the virus. Amply documented, there is a process of concentration of wealth which is unprecedented in world history, whereby the financial establishment, the super rich, multi-billionaires are appropriating the real assets of both bankrupt companies as well as state assets. And that is their agenda. The same powerful creditors which triggered the COVID global debt crisis starting in early February are intent upon establishing what they describe as a new normal, which essentially consists in imposing the so-called Great Reset. The Great Reset is a project of the World Economic Forum. and it is described as the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution. There's no scientific basis for implementing the closing down of the global economy as a means to resolving a public health crisis. This should appear obvious to us, but both the media and the governments are involved in spreading disinformation. Our governments are lying. And in the words of Dr. Pascal Sacré,
Si ce seuil de sensibilité est mis trop haut,
it is time for everyone to come out of this negative trance, this collective hysteria, because famine, poverty, mass unemployment will kill and destroy the lives of many more people than SARS-CoV-2. And I should mention that Dr. Pascal Sacré, an eminent medical doctor in Belgium, was fired by his hospital. In the words of James Meehan, I'm seeing patients that have facial rashes, fungal infections, bacterial infections. In February and March, we were told not to wear masks. What changed? The science didn't change. The politics did. This is about compliance. It's not about science. And let me conclude that the role of independent media in confronting both the governments as well as the corporate media is of utmost significance. Because why? Because once the lie becomes the truth, there's no moving backwards. Insanity prevails. The world is turned upside down.